Today's podcast is brought to you by AlleyRepair.com. Don't leave your skee ball machines lying around collecting dust in the basement. Let AlleyRepair.com bring those machines back to life. High quality workmanship for your skee ball playing needs. Contact AlleyRepair.com today. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Fro Football Podcast. Yes, it's been a while since we've done a football podcast. We kind of held off ever since the Super Bowl, but there's all kinds of news heading into the free agency period. We wanted to make sure we jumped all over that and brought you the latest in the news around the NFL. There hasn't been any signings yet, but there's a whole lot of rumbling going on that certain things are going to happen. We're going to get started with Tony Jefferson. Tony Jefferson is a huge opportunity for the Baltimore Ravens. The rumor is Tony Jefferson is headed to the Ravens. This is a safety who is an impact player, not necessarily Ed Reed, but something the Ravens were seriously lacking in recent history. And along with the fact that they're expected to add Tony Jefferson and give that deep defense some support, they're also expected to release Elvis Dumervil, which a couple years ago he was like the free agent steal that everybody wanted, and there was some issues back then. I don't know if anybody remembers, but the Denver Broncos tried to sign him, but they didn't do the paperwork right. He ended up leaving for the Ravens. Well, now they get the opportunity to go sign him again because the Ravens have just released him. The Lions are getting ready to make Wagner the highest paid right tackle in football. For anybody who doesn't know who we're talking about, I mean, we're talking about a guy who does not give up sacks. And when you're a quarterback in the NFL, let's face it, that's your primary thing. You do not want to see people in your face. Ricky Wagner is one of the best players in the game right now at his position. Again, like I said, hasn't been made official yet, but we highly anticipate that he's going to sign with the Lions. And coming off a performance with the Ravens where he was doing so well, it's shocking to see Dumervil and Wagner both leave the Ravens, but then the Ravens make this huge splash in free agency and find a way to come up with some new players for the team while losing so many of their key players from the past. So we'll have to see how that plays out. It's something interesting to look forward to. Word out on the street is that tomorrow you can expect the Philadelphia Eagles to sign Kenny Britt. Now, that comes on the heels of a lot of conversation and banter about the Eagles potentially trading for Brandon Cooks, the Eagles wanting to sign Kenny Stills, people like that, or even Deshaun Jackson. However, Kenny Stills today re-upped with the Miami Dolphins. The asking price for Brandon Cooks apparently is way too high for the Eagles, and it doesn't sound like they're willing to part with that first-round pick they have. And in addition, the Deshaun Jackson situation, it sounds like from all the rumors that he's going to be going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So a lot of wide receivers that are just floating around, and we're seeing where these things are going to happen and where people are going to fall. On the topic of people catching the ball, the Colts have made a big deal today, trading away their tight end Dwayne Allen. Dwayne Allen's going to join the Patriots after a season where he really was not as effective as they wanted him to be. 400 and some yards, not a ton of catches, not a ton of touchdowns. Maybe the Patriots can see something in him. I'm kind of scared to see what the Patriots can do with another stud tight end. You know, it sounds like Martellus Bennett probably was a little too rich for their blood. He's probably going to sign elsewhere, but we'll see how that shakes down. Brandon Marshall is, now that he's gone from the Jets, he is now signed with, or is about to sign with, the New York Giants on a 2-year deal for $12 million. So that is just going to fortify that passing game. That's going to be insane to see Brandon Marshall on one side and Odell Beckham Jr. on the other. Speaking of the NFC East, the Cowboys have informed Tony Romo that effective tomorrow they will be releasing him. This is going to bring his tenure to a close. The guy only got 2 playoff wins in his time there, but still had what many people would argue was a Hall of Fame career. There's a lot of interest right now from the Houston Texans and from the Denver Broncos. I have no idea where he's going to land. He could go either place or go elsewhere. Quarterbacks this year seem to be a hot commodity when you got people like Mike Glennon drawing $14-15 million a year conversation. I can only imagine where Tony Romo is going to end up. The free agent fullback market has been going crazy. Big backs are going everywhere. The Bills signed someone today. The 49ers. It's not a position that people typically would think about as being like a high priority for teams, but it really is. This is a situation where fullbacks have kind of made a comeback the last couple years, and now they're playing a bigger role in some of these spread offenses, blocking and whatnot. So, you know, big backs moving around the league. In the 49ers world, speaking of the 49ers, Brian Hoyer has agreed in principle to a 2-year deal with the 49ers. This is the only quarterback they're going to have on the roster. As after tomorrow, all the rest of their quarterbacks are either free agents or have opted out of their deal in the case of Colin Kaepernick. And so the Niners, they're trying to do what they're going to do to make a push this year. They're signing Pierre Garçon. The terms of the deal haven't been released, but we know that the first year is going to be in the neighborhood of $16 million. The Jags are going to be landing Barry Church. It's just been a crazy day of all sorts of speculation and move around. Tyrod Taylor is going to stay in Buffalo. He restructured his deal. So it's just one move after another after another. Now, technically speaking, none of these teams can sign anybody until tomorrow. But all these are like agreed upon in principle. They're supposed to only be talking right now. There's not supposed to be anything on paper. But you know as well as I do that legal tampering period is kind of a joke, and that these teams have something in place. They're pretty much ready to go. So we'll have to see how this whole thing plays out. With the Philadelphia Eagles, with them, if they do land Kenny Britt, that brings some clarity to their wide receiver situation. It's expected that they'll go after another one in the draft, as well as cornerback help, something they need desperately. The Kenny Britt situation gives it so they have somebody on one side of the ball. They still need a deep speed threat. That they don't have yet. Jordan Matthews needs to stick in the slot. Who cares about Nelson Aguilar? I hope they get rid of him. But at the end of the day, the Eagles tomorrow could be either completely quiet or they could be some movers and shakers. Still not out of the running to potentially get Brandon Cooks. I'm curious to see where he ends up. There's a chance that the Saints may just keep him if they're not getting what they want for him. They have him for like $1.7 million this year, and they can exercise his fifth-year option for $10 million next year. If I was the Saints, I'd be hanging on to him to give Drew Brees the best chance you can in his last go-around. But at the end of the day, I'm not the one making the decisions for their team. If I were them, I would seriously consider keeping a deep threat like that on the field for your team. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next time. We're going to talk about free agency, see what's going down. Special thanks, as always, out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all of our music and sound effects used in this particular show. Today's podcast is sponsored in part by fastweb.com. Search the FastWeb database and help your student access scholarships and financial aid information with the FastWeb free and easy-to-use scholarship search tool. Investigate the college of your dreams with the FastWeb College Profile search engine, and let FastWeb be your guide to higher education. To the U.S. News & World Report Best Colleges 2017, which is available right now at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. To Fufu Games, newest game of strategy and collective fun, its Legendary Elements. Travel around the universe collecting items that will make you the master of the elements. Get your copy today at www.thegamecrafter.com/legendary elements now. And to A&B Education of Lansdale, bringing intercultural education to talented students from around the world. We want to thank you for listening to today's episode of the Fro Football Podcast. We encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you in your path to higher education. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. We look forward to chatting with you guys after the kickoff of free agency. Take care, everybody.